Athel Loren, here we come. But it won't be the Wood Elves today at the Battle of the Cairns. We've got myself and ShetlandApache facing off as the Zanganaz and Dawi of the World's Edge Mountains go to war. A rivalry that has wormed its way into the Damaz Kron on more than a few occasions. ShetlandApache is a really experienced Dwarfs player, which is awesome because I very rarely get to see that in action, and I wanted to try and crack that Gromrel nut with the Undead of Sylvania. And who better to lead the vampire counts than Vlad the Dad, the progenitor vampire of the von Carstein bloodline, and one of the most badass characters in all of Warhammer Fantasy. I really like him against the Dwarfs. He's a meat grinder, tanky as hell, has obscene amounts of health regen with Blood Drinker, and he's always on foot, so that low profile makes it really hard for range units to get a beat on him. And if we're playing against the Dawi, it makes some sense to bust out the Black Coaches, right? Really fun niche unit. They have low melee attack to begin with and also do magical damage, which is not good at all versus Dwarfs, but it's their huge charge bonus, their armor piercing, and that bonus versus infantry that makes them potentially worth using in this matchup. And so their job will basically just be to rampage in the back lines, generally cause havoc, run stuff over, and build towards those huge buffs as the battle drags on. But the sneaky little stunties have some tricks up their sleeves, and we'll be seeing a super wide build with Irondrakes and Thunders all over the place, who can create this defense in-depth approach and enfilade fire that can be really hard to deal with. And the Dragonback Slayers and their Lord will lead the charge. Now, Dragonback Slayers are obviously an amazing option against large monsters in Cav, and can blend zombies and skeletons without much trouble, but the Dwarf Lord is a fun pick because he's just really cheap. I mean, he lets you fill out the rest of your build really nicely, and his Star Metal Plate gives him a -9 melee attack aura, so you can just plop him on the front line, and he'll passively help turn the melee grind in your favor. But the Dwarfs aren't really trying to win the melee fight here. They can't. There are way too many Graveguard, way too many skeletons, way too many numbers on the field. They're going to be relying on those range units to really do the damage. There are Graveguard, there are Sternsmen, there are Graveguard with great weapons, and the Black Coaches out on the flanks with the Fell Bats to tie down range units in the back. And those Black Coaches can really cause a lot of havoc in the Dawi back line because they have a lot of mass. They can push forward. Once they get Black Nimbus up, they can really start resisting a lot of that damage output. And the Blood Knights are still a problem for the Dwarfs. They got an AP buff recently. They can run over Rangers and Thunders and Irondrakes and pretty much anything. A hammer and anvil from them will really hurt. But this deployment right here from ShetlandApache, as we see the Dragonback Slayers and the Lord start moving up, is really what you should be trying to emulate if you're trying to play the Dwarfs. This is so much harder to shut down than the box formations you'll typically see. Look at how many Thunders are in the back lines there that are free and able to just fire in. So if you tie down one, they can still get a bunch of shots coming in from many different angles, quickly eviscerate your high value targets like the Black Coaches or the Blood Knights. And if you don't tie down all the range units, you're going to get punished very heavily, very quickly. So this is going to be a very challenging nut to crack, but I was looking forward to trying it out. And I see a lot of newer Dwarf players will make these really compact formations around their artillery, and if you do that, it's really easy for Vampire Lords to raise dead on all your range units and generally just disrupt your formation. But if you're deeper and you're more spread out, then you're giving your Dawi much better chance of quickly eliminating those threats and preventing them from just blobbing up and getting one unit to tie down a bunch of high value targets. Right now, ShetlandApache is going to get very aggressive with the Dragonback Slayers early to kill some zombies and basically just get some meat shields off the field. And I really wanted to raise dead Skeleton Warriors behind them and pin them in place. I was a little bit slow on the uptake. The cast range on Raised Dead is very slow, couldn't pin them in place, and he is going to disengage just in time. But obviously, with all that Thunder and Irondrake firepower, we need to just get into melee, get those Black Coaches around the flank, get the Fell Bats to tie down the Thunders, and hopefully get in and around and start running over all those range units in the back. So that's what the Fell Bats and the Black Coaches are there for. We kind of have to move really quick though, because that armor-piercing damage is going to really start shredding our Graveguard front line if we aren't careful. Of course, the skeletons and the zombies, they're going to be chaff. They're going to get absolutely incinerated by these opening volleys. That's fine. As long as the Graveguard aren't taking too much damage early, we should be okay. But the Dawi have, I think, 5 Dwarf Warriors and 5 Miners with blasting charges, so they've gone completely for numbers here, and overwhelming ranged firepower, with 5 of those Thunders and 3 Irondrakes shooting through the gaps in the lines, and it's looking like V-Day out there. Undead swarming the beach in the pillboxes as flames rain down on them from above, and the meat shields are already taking a beating as the Black Coach makes its mark, makes its presence felt, hits the Thunders, and goes right through. And from the flank, look at that charge! My god! Black Coach gonna absolutely run over that first rank of Irondrakes there and keep going, keep on chugging, just choo-choo train it right through the center of their formation, but taking a lot of damage already. And look at how many free Thunders there are. We gotta keep those Black Coaches moving, gotta make sure they get that Black Nimbus buff. That 44% damage resistance is gonna be so important if they can get there, and obviously the extra 40% armor piercing damage as well. There are a lot of really good buffs those Black Coaches can get, but they need time. They need to be in melee for 90 seconds to get to that point. And another big charge into the Thunder, just bowling them over, and the Karen Wraith that's piloting that thing. Pretty happy with that charge there, but already, look at this. This is what happens when you've got Enflate Fire and like 3 or 4 Thunders all in the back, all just in different areas, firing in on a single target. That Black Coach is taking a beating early on, and that means the Blood Knights need to spring their ambush and get in there. And they will. They're going to go straight for the Thunders here, get a big gap in the line, hit it, and run over those Thunders. But a lot of these ranges, of course, Dwarfs are tanky. They're not going to go down that easy, and with the Black Coach's magical attacks, they're really just not making the impact I really wanted to. I had them bouncing all over. I did not stop moving once there. They finally got pinned down by some miners, and with like only 9 kills, it's dead. The other one already dead, and ShetlandApache did an amazing job shutting down both those Black Coaches. They really did not make the impact I wanted them to have. Blood Knights get a really nice charge there into the back of the Irondrakes, and Vlad von Carstein will start doing his work here in melee. Just carve a path of red ruin through Slayers. But I've already taken a huge blow to my army. Dwarfs were ready for that, man. I was microing my Black Coaches like crazy and keeping them moving, but those layered armor-piercing volleys shredded them in seconds, and it's 2,400 gold down the drain in the opening stages of the battle. And now a lot of the pressure that I had on their back line is completely gone, which is a bit of an issue. And in retrospect, it might have been better to let them loose a little bit later, once the front line of Dwarf Warriors had begun faltering just a little bit. But I don't know, like they made it into the targets I wanted them to hit, and the Fell Bats were there to support and tie stuff up. It was just too much firepower and really good positioning from the Dawi that punished them heavily. So yeah, Vlad is in the center here, anchoring the line, and again, that's why I really like him. That low profile makes it so hard for Thunders to fire over the top of their own units and hit him and snipe him down. I have an Invocation Hack going down on my Blood Knights now. They've already taken a beating from those thundering armor-piercing volleys, and there's a gap here though. And if I can get them into the back here and start cycle charging the Thunders, we can be in a really good position to make up for the loss of those Black Coaches. So first things first, get a charge into the miners and stuff here, maybe cause a fear route, really nice charge, and tie up some of those Thunders as well. And then we can disengage and go for a rear charge on the back of those Dwarf Warriors in the front ranks. That's what we'll do. Irondrakes gonna punish those Graveguard with great weapons really heavily. Unit is about to crumble. They're gone now. That's another high value target that I really don't want to be losing this early in the battle. The Knights are free though. They are gonna shatter those Dwarf Warriors and then go directly for the Irondrakes and the Thunders. Another Invocation to Heck to keep them in the fight. I need those Blood Knights to stay alive here. Like, I need some kind of mobility, because with all those Thunders on the field and the fact that they've been spread out so well this battle, if I don't shut them all down, they're just going to run away from my infantry. And if I have no mobility to actually catch them, then they're going to be free to just keep shooting all my infantry to death, and that's going to be a serious issue. But again, same problem. I only have one cav unit to tie all that stuff down, and that means that extra Thunders can just turn and start shooting into them. Vlad still carving stuff up though. Dragonback Slayers on their last legs, about to go down. And yeah, look at this. 2 Invocation to Hex, doesn't even matter. And the worst thing about this part was crazy to me. I tried to disengage my Blood Knights, right? I tried to pull out of this fight. Those routing miners, actually, they have enough mass that they stop my Blood Knights from disengaging. I tried desperately to pull them out and go for a Hammer and Anvil on the front line, and I couldn't. Those routing Dwarf miners actually stopped them from moving. They got stuck and in between the Thunders and the miners, and then they just got shredded and crumbled. So now all my mobility is gone, the Black Coaches are gone, the Blood Knights are gone, and it's been a masterclass from the Dwarfs so far in terms of quickly eliminating the biggest threats to their army. ShetlandApache's done a really good job of that. But now it's infantry, and the Graveguard and the zombies and the skeletons are a problem for this Dwarf front line. I mean, the Dwarf Warriors and the Miners are just not meant to go toe-to-toe with Stearnsmen or Graveguard. And the Dwarf Lord, same thing. I mean, the Aura of Dark Grandeur from Vlad, that -4 leadership, is going to be not the biggest deal because the Dwarf Lord is still alive and he's going to anchor that line. And Dwarfs obviously have really good leadership. But Vlad has 70 melee attack, 480 weapon strength, insurmountable regen for a paltry Dwarf Lord to deal with. And Vlad is just going to shove that dude in a locker, steal his lunch money, and give him a swirly for good measure. Like, that Dwarf Lord has absolutely no chance of beating him in a 1v1 fight. And if he can't get away from Vlad, then he's going to die. And if he dies, then they won't have the leadership anchor that the army would really like to have. And he's already routed. He's about to, yeah, he's routed. Vlad, I mean, we need to make sure that Dwarf Lord does not come back. The best way to get back into this fight is make sure the Lord dies. Again, Dwarfs do not take the biggest leadership penalty when their Lord goes down, but still important to eliminate him. Still will imbue some of those leadership effects that we'd like to see, and then fear can maybe start kicking in on some of the lower tier troops. So yeah, Blood Drinker gonna chase after this Lord here, and it shouldn't be more than a couple more attacks, and one swing will take his arm off from behind. Beautiful. And you will taste the blood of that Dwarf Lord who's dead now. And already you can see some wavering from the Dwarfs here. The Dwarf Warriors and Miners and some of those Thunders as well. They are starting to take some casualties. They're starting to take those morale hits. And we're shoving the Thunders up against the white line, the edge of the map, which is also important. Routing some of these Thunders right here. And this is a point of the battle where we cannot afford to disengage from routed Thunders. You have to chase after them, right? Because we've lost all our speed. All of our high-value targets, all of our mobility, the infantry need to make sure those Thunders don't come back, because even a half unit with half ammo is enough to maybe finish off some of my Grave Guard, which is just completely not acceptable. So just chase them off the map, make sure they can't come back. An Invocation to Heck onto those Grave Guard to maybe keep them in the fight here against those Miners, but the Irondrakes getting some really good volleys into the back of them. Thankfully, we have a lot of Winds of Magic. We haven't used very many high-value spells, so I think I only brought Invocation to Heck and Raise Dead this battle. So we've got tons of Winds of Magic left, especially with Arcane Conduit, and that means heals for all my infantry. But there is very little left on the battlefield right now. Severely depleted Graveguard, Sternsman at half health, Vlad at full, which is great, and he's charging in now, and he's about to decapitate some Irondrakes and try to get them off the field, chase them down. But ShetlandApache has the advantage of having a lot more units on the field right now, and doing stuff like this. Crisscrossing volleys of armor-piercing shots going directly into Vlad. Right now, not going to be a big deal because he has Blood Drinker, but remember that health regen is not finite. You can't continue regenning forever. There will come a point here where he will not be able to regen anymore, and once that happens, he's going to start taking a lot of damage from those armor-piercing shots. But the Sternsmen are still in the fight here. The blasting charge is going off into them, and my job right now is I can't really catch the Thunders. I need to make sure all the infantry dies, because once the infantry's gone, then we can really commit to those Thunders and chasing them off the map. But until that happens, it's going to be hard. Vlad, thank God he's a boss. Thank God he can just go into the middle of these Dwarf units and just start slicing them up, dicing them up, carving them up with Blood Drinker, and that's what he's going to do. Sparta kick into the center of their formation a couple times as well. And he's gonna munch them. I mean, they can't do any damage to him. Another Invocation to Heck going down on the Sternsmen to keep them in the fight. Even their regen isn't enough right now. They're taking so much damage from range. But that's it. Right now, it's only Sternsmen and Vlad. They're the only Bastions I have left in my entire Vampire Count's army. Thankfully, the Dwarfs are not in a great position either. Balance Bar is in my favor at the moment, but Vlad is obviously going to give a much bigger portion of that balance bar than any of the remaining Dwarf units. And what it's not taking into consideration is that I only have 2 units left, the Sternsman and Vlad, and he has a bunch of depleted Thunder spread all over the forest, so I can't tie them all down. Those remaining Thunders have enough ammo to probably kill Vlad like 3 times over. It's going to come down to line of sight, which should open up for them once he's done feasting on the remnants of the melee troops and done Leonidasing their heads from their shoulders. That's actually the funny thing about vampires in Warhammer, Vlad especially. That right there is not even unrealistic, dude. Like, he can do stuff like that in the lore. Vampires are incredibly fast and incredibly strong, and they could probably kick your head off your shoulders. And that hurt. And he's routed all the melee troops that just tried to surround him. Like, he didn't even care. He's still full HP. But he's getting to the point where I'm pretty sure he's very, very close to the regen cap, which means from that point on, any volleys that he takes will do the full damage. And the Irondrakes are getting some really good volleys into the Sternsmen as well, and they're also near their regen cap too. There might be enough room for one more Invocation to Heck, but that'll be it. That'll send them to the regen cap as well, and then it'll be just straight up Dwarfs, what remains of their army, versus what remains of the Stearnsman and Vlad. And I did bring the von Carstein ring as he gets into the flank of those Irondrakes, so that 90% damage resistance for 30 seconds is super good as well. I am not actually sure if I've used it yet. I think I might use it a little bit later here when a couple more Thunders are firing into him. But yeah, you want to save that for a point where you're out of regen probably, and you're taking a lot of damage at a certain time. Well, really any time where you're taking a ton of armor-piercing damage at a certain point of the battle, it's probably a good time to use it. Taking 2 or 3 volleys to the face is certainly time, though. And those Dwarf Thunders, again, just chase them off the map. Do not let them come back. Do not let them use their ammo. Okay, that's the last invocation of the heck right there. So yeah, now is that regen cap, but they're almost full HP. I mean, the healing is insane. Like, Vampire Count's healing is super good. There's no question about it. And this will be the final conclusion of the battle. And we've got a barn burner, because that bounce bar is highly misleading, being really unfair to the Dwarfs right now. It's only going to take like 2 or 3 good volleys to get Vlad past half HP, and then a couple more to get him into crumbling territory. And he has to get into melee. He has to commit. He needs to chase after the Thunders and keep them moving, otherwise the Stearnsman will get shredded from the flanks. And that means that he has to get into range of the Thunders and take those volleys. And look at that. Look at that, like one couple volleys, and he's already down to half health. And look at the bounce bar already shifting back more towards the Dwarfs. Now, Stearnsman into melee, Dwarf Warriors into melee as well. Killing them, not going to be a problem. Beguilement going down, minus 44 melee attack will literally take their melee attack down to 0, which does not translate actually to a 0 chance to hit. There's still a base chance that all units will have, but 0 melee attack will mean they'll do no damage. But they're tying up and giving more miners their chance to throw their blessing charges, giving the Thunders more time to fire in as well, and now they'll commit the rest of their melee troops as the Stearnsmen continue to push forward, and they're at half health too, and you can see that bounce bar starting to shift back, and this is going to be really close. 3 Thunders with ammo left, and Vlad past half health. Couple more volleys, he'll be into crumbling territory, and that'll be super bad for the Vampire Counts. Charging forward now, exposing himself to the flank, taking another full volley to the face, but getting in. Blooddrinker no longer able to give him regen, but he can start bisecting them and carving them up, and they will retreat. They're not broken yet, not shattered yet, but the leadership is definitely starting to play a factor here. A lot of those Dwarf Warriors, a lot of the melee troops wavering and routing, and Thunders on the flank. They can get a full volley in, but the ammo-less ones are actually blocking the shots of the ones behind, and that's a bit problematic. Vlad is like 1 or 2 volleys from death now. Slivers of HP. Stearnsmen are definitely going to win their melee fight though, and a couple more shots about to come in here, I think. Yep. Oh my god, Vlad is so close to dying, and he definitely does not have the von Carstein ring anymore. Thunders are routing. Balance bar is still in the Vampire Count's favor, and wavering is starting to take hold on the Dwarf line. And ShetlandApache gonna get overrun by the Stearnsman here, and with Vlad at about 500, 400 health, literally the remnants of like 1 volley would be enough to kill him. The Dwarfs are gonna lose, and the Vampire Counts are gonna take it. Really close. That was the closest battle I've had with Vlad since I think that hilarious battle that I played with Oakley, where it was, I think it was Ungrim that killed Vlad and like Kolek within like 3 seconds of each other at the end of the battle. The Last Stand at Barak Var, I think the name of that battle was, and that was like a cinematic battle. This was more along the style of like competitive, although obviously it was still just a friendly. It wasn't like a tournament match or anything. I think he was just trying out some concave enfilade fire shenanigans, trying stuff out just for fun. I asked him for some games, and he wonderfully obliged, and they were really fun, but it worked exceptionally well. I mean, what he did this battle worked super well. Only reason I won there was because Vlad was a beast and carried me hard. But that's why I picked him, right? Like, he's not a great choice in some other matchups, but if you're looking for someone who just won't die ever and can avoid range fire, he's your dude. Absolute animal, and that's what you pay for, right? You're paying for that survivability, so he did what he was supposed to do. ShetlandApache played super well though. He did a fantastic job shutting down my Black Coaches and my Blood Knights, and his range micro was on point up until that last flanking volley where the 2 gunners overlapped, and if he had gotten a full volley off there, he might have crumbled Vlad and squeaked out a win. But incredibly close game. Hope you all enjoyed it. Good game, Shetland, and I'll see you all in the next video. Indypride, signing out for now.